All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Today's webinar is about navigating the engineering licensure process and exam day. Just a little bit about PPI before we get started. We've been around for 50 years and we train engineers, architects, and interior designers for their professional licensing exams. We've started off doing mostly print manuals and practice problems and that sort of thing, and then we transitioned, gosh, probably 10, 15 years ago into on-demand and live online courses that are instructor-led. And we actually have 3 of our instructors on the call today. And then we also have online learning tools. This is like things like quiz banks and online practice exams that simulate the NCEES practice exam. As some of you might know, exam changes happen frequently, either specifications, codes, format, that sort of thing, and they've been changing a lot over the past 10 years for both FE and PE and architecture as well. And one of our biggest roles is really taking those changes and making sure that our course materials, our books, our quizzes, everything is updated to reflect those changes. And lastly, our materials, they're authored and reviewed by a team of experts, a very large team. We've got authors and subject matter experts on staff. Our company was actually founded by Michael Lindeberg, if you guys know of his books. David Ballast on the architecture and the interior design side. John Camara, he's really big in the electrical engineering realm. So that's just a little bit about PPI before we get started. All right, so who is here today? We're going to go ahead and do some brief introductions here. All 3 of these guys, Josh Ogle, Khalid Hachil, and Mahmoud Alzioud, they're instructors for PPI, and they'll go ahead and tell you a little bit about themselves now. So we'll go ahead and kick it off with Josh.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm Josh Ogle, aka the Hipster Engineer, and I am licensed as a civil engineer as well as a structural engineer. Got my education at BYU for my bachelor's, my master's from UC Davis, and like I mentioned, I'm a structural engineer, so I work for an engineering firm called Dunn Associates in Salt Lake City, Utah, and the classes that I teach currently, or the classes that I have taught, I should say, are the PE Civil class, which would include the breadth and the depth of structural, as well as the FE Civil exam prep course. And the reason why I decided to become an instructor is because I want to help those around me become better engineers, as well as help those kind of navigate some of these more difficult parts of the journey to becoming an engineer. For myself, my interest in becoming an engineer has always been, building with Legos, tinkering, understanding how things work, loving design or architecture. I have family that's in the architectural realm or in the contractor realm, and so seeing how they put things together was very interesting to me from an early age. But I just had that knack for math and the art of mathematics, I guess, and how that blended well with design. So that's why I am where I am now, and I'm excited to share some thoughts with you guys all today.
Great, thanks, Josh. Next up, we'll do Khalid.
All right, thank you, Jenny. Good afternoon. My name is Khalid Hachil. I am a PE for electrical engineering. I'm also a lead AP BD+C. I have my master's degree as well in electrical engineering, and I teach the FE course for electrical and computer engineering. I do work for an A&E firm, an architecture and engineering firm, and I do electrical engineering for a variety of projects where there's buildings and transportation. I've been an engineer, or I've been in the engineering industry for about 10 years now, and I've been a PPI instructor for about 2 years. And the reason why I became a PE was because I wanted to make the most of my professional career, and the way to make my way to the top of engineering and top my profession was to become a PE.
Awesome, thank you. And last but not least, we have Mahmoud.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Mahmoud Alzioud. I hold a doctorate degree, PhD in transportation engineering from the University of Akron, Ohio. I am a licensed professional engineer in the state of Texas and currently working on my other license in Oklahoma for some reason. And I am a certified professional traffic operations engineer and a certified road safety professional in the US. I've been working with PPI school for the last maybe 3 years, and I felt always like more into teaching rather than industry. So this school gave me the chance to be in a very close contact with engineers trying to be professional engineers. And I always felt like there is something I can offer and there is something I can help through my previous 17 years of experience in industry, beside teaching and academic field. And here I am today. Thank you for being here, and thanks to Jenny to prepare this and for the great effort to have us all today.
All right. Thank you all. And last but not least, I am also the moderator. My name is Jenny Sly. I have worked for this wonderful company for 12 years now in a variety of roles across marketing and product and operations. And I am the current manager of our instructors as well. All right, let's get started. The first thing that we are going to touch upon is navigating NCEES. I'm going to go ahead and kick it off to Khalid, who's going to do a walkthrough of the website here in this examinee guide to get us started. So I'm going to go ahead.
So for the PEs in the room, a lot of people are already familiar with the NCEES and NCEES.org. But for people who are looking into getting their first license, looking into getting their FE, they might not know where to start. And the NCEES is where to go because these are the same people who administer the exams. So NCEES.org, up top we have all the information that we can need regarding exams, licensure, services, outreach, and anything in regards of administering the exam, any sort of special accommodations or any questions that you have that's exam or exam day related, you would go into contact in that last tab. The customer service for NCEES is pretty good, so anytime you can either call them or email them and they can answer all of your questions. Anything regarding your state's requirements, we're going to get into a little bit later on how to get there, but that would be contacting your state. But the most important tab here, when you start looking into getting a license, is the top tab that says My NCEES. So as you start to look into getting a license, that would be the first place to go. You'd start to create your own account, My NCEES account, and that's where you can get started. There we go. So for anyone, it says My NCEES under NCEES customers. That's where you would start your account. Okay. Now from here, we can also find the examinee guide. Any information regarding the exam, day of the exam, what to expect, what kind of documents you could bring with you, is all in here under examinee guide. So if we open that up, it's just a PDF, just a couple pages that can answer a lot of questions. So we have managing your exam registration, your exam appointments, preparing for the day, understanding the exam format, which is different for the FE and the PE and the SE, exam irregularities, your exam results, and all of these other informations here under this one document. Now, there are certain specific pages that I feel apply to a lot of people. If we go to page 3, I've been asked in the past about ADA requirements. So if anyone has some sort of specific ADA requirement, any sort of disability, if you have any veterans that are taking the exam, they can find their required information here. If you go to page 4, any members of the military that are currently active, they can still take the exam. So we have a little bit of information here. And if it's still not enough, you could always contact NCEES. What's also super important is if you go to page 9, what to bring with you. So what kind of identification to bring with you, what's okay, your calculators, your books, glasses, all of this is contacted here. What's also important is your status. So specific documentations will be approved, specific documentations won't be approved. This is all under this page here. Under page 10, I've been asked in the past, some people have allergies or some sort of other things that they think about on the day-to-day exam. So we have approved comfort items, what you can bring to the testing center, what's not allowed. So they have a breakdown, an entire list here, which is a separate PDF under Pearson VUE Comfort Aid list. Now on the same page, a little bit lower, it says NCEES YouTube channel. So anyone looking into getting licensed, I definitely recommend subscribing to that channel. They have very interesting videos, nice and short, and it's not too long, so you can get a lot of your information there. Rough list here is on page 16. We can find testing dates and formats. So most of the tests are changing to be year-round, but we still have a few tests that are only offered on certain days. The length of the test, your break time, the tutorial, the number of questions, they're all laid out here on this page. And lastly, on page 17 and 18, it's what you can bring into the testing center. So your calculators, your key to your locker, your notebook, your glasses, and things that are prohibited, such as your watches, purses, coats, anything like that. So this entire list is here with other pages that can help out with any sort of questions that you have. But it's still, if any question is left out regarding taking the exam itself, you can always contact NCEES.
Awesome, thank you. The next two things we have here are the reference handbooks, which are the materials that you can that they provide on exam day that are electronic, and also the exam specifications. And we're going to have Mahmoud cover these. So I'm going to go ahead and click this to get to the reference handbooks. And just as a heads up, to get to reference handbooks, you do need to create that My NCEES account that Khalid was just talking about. So I do have one. And then you'll see here that there are reference handbooks for all of the exams that are available as a free download. Okay.
Okay, so the NCEES, they actually were a little bit generous with us by publishing and authoring this book. This reference book is actually, I want to call it a quite extensive book, that it has a lot of information that you as an FE or PE student, you guys are really going to need. And it helps you track the study and the study plan this school is offering you. And the most important thing is the way this handbook is structured. I, of course, cannot go through all of them. The handbook I'm going to tell you a brief summary about is the Civil Engineering Handbook. This principle and the practice of engineering that you can see on the screen now. First of all, they have an introduction. They explain to you what the exam looks like, and they will explain to you that it became a computer-based exam. And of course, this book, as Jenny said, as long as you have the NCEES account, you are going to have a free access to download this book. Feel free to print it out, but at the same time, you cannot redistribute this book. It is just for your own use as an NCEES member after you created your account with them. Now, this book, it clearly indicates, and let's be clear here, this book, and we as PPI to pass lecturers, we always remind the engineers. The same thing this book reminds you. It is not the only reference that you are going to need in your exam. It includes a lot of information, a lot of formulas, and it organized itself by chapters and sections. As you can see here, this civil engineering one is actually divided into maybe 6 chapters, starting with a general engineering chapter for all disciplines, followed by construction. Personally, for me, I am as a traffic engineer and as a lecturer for the transportation depth PE course with this school. I am more focused on the transportation chapter from this book, which is chapter 5. Now, how to track this? As a student in this school, or following the slides presented to you, if you see any equation that is in blue, it means this equation is from the NCEES reference handbook. However, does this mean the handbook contains everything you really need in the exam? The answer, of course, is no. It will provide you with equations, information that you are going to use while you study, while you prepare for your exam, and inside the exam itself. In the exam, they are going to provide you with a searchable PDF copy of this reference. Now, from an experience, I'm telling you, the first thing you need to do if you have a question, now you go to this handbook and try to find the equation. If it was not there, then you will start to think which reference may include that equation. I can talk a lot about references now, but later on in this webinar, we are going to discuss the exam specification, so I will leave it there. What you need to do what you need to know about this handbook is that it is your very first step in understanding what we call the scoping of your exam. What your exam is all about. It will help you. Sometimes you are going to need, and I always tell my students actually, although you are a transportation engineer, but sometimes you really need to dig through other sections, other chapters from the same handbook, such as what? In civil engineering, by the end of the course, we are going to cover soil properties, and how we do erosion control, okay? This erosion control, if you go to the handbook, for example, you cannot find it in the transportation depth. It will be in chapter 3, not chapter 5. That's why this handbook, I want you all to look at it as a comprehensive reference, but not enough. This is what I want you to know. And by the way, if you dig through the introduction of this book, the very good thing is that the NCEES give you a chance as a panelist, as a lecturer, as an engineer, as a student, as anybody. If you feel that something is wrong in this manual, you can always contact them because they allow the errata update, and this is available in the second page of the handbook, and you can report anything in this reference if you feel like there is something that needs to be changed. This is what I want to tell you about, Jenny.
Great, yeah, thank you. And just to reiterate that too, that handbook, when you're taking your exam, it's a split screen, so you're answering questions on the right-hand side, and that handbook is provided for you electronically on the left-hand side of your screen. So this is the resource that's provided for you for exam day, and so you're able to see it before as you're studying and really get familiar with the content in there. So real quick, we're going to go through the exam specifications. I'm going to go ahead and click on the PE exam, and we'll stick with the civil theme here. So if you go to the NCEES website again, exams right here, PE exam, if you scroll down, they have the specifications. This is what's going to be covered on the exam. So if I click civil, there's now 5 different exams for civil. I'll do transportation. So this document is extremely important, and I'll have Mahmoud cover this one as well.
Thank you, Jenny, so much. Now, for the exam specification, as we mentioned, first of all, the very first thing when you register for your exam and you come here to download the exam specification, the very first thing I really want you to look at and to pay attention to is the effective beginning date. Why? Because the NCEES, they always keep updating the exam specification, and they will announce that starting, for example, from April this year, 2024, you are going to use this exam specification to guide you through your preparation for the PE exam. Now, the first introduction of this exam specification, it is very brief. However, it gives you an insight and very important information about your exam, such as what? First of all, it's going to explain to you how many hours you will have in your exam, what is your exam about, and how many questions and what type of a questions, and explain to you the units that you are going to face in your exam. You will have SI, for example, and US customary unit. And much more than this, we are going to cover in the next few pages. Let's start now how this exam specification is actually built or constructed. Those exam specifications, either for civil engineering, transportation one, or other disciplines such as construction, such as structural. And I can see, by the way, one of your questions, guys, we have a question about exam in material. Yes, the PE, NCEES, they do have an exam about, it's called Professional Engineer in Materials. And you can find the exam specification for that in the NCEES account. They do have a specific exam about material. Now, let's continue. Now, this exam specification will explain to you actually the main topics and subtopics, headlines and subheadlines from the chapters that you are required to study to prepare for. One of the most interesting facts about exam specification, you can see it to the right of each topic. It tells you the number of questions. Personally, when I look at this, I can tell that, oh my God, it's a traffic engineering exam. Why? Because you need to expect 15 questions out of 80. Can you imagine the percentage? And this is from one chapter. The project management, you can expect from 6 to 9 questions. Roadside cross-section, 7 to 11. And let's go all the way down. Jenny, please. For the drainage, it is the second important topic with vertical design. You need to expect 12 questions. Now, some of you may think, why this information may be useful to me? What's the use of this information? Actually, the use of this information, it helps you dedicate time. For example, let's assume I have only 6 hours today to study, and I have 2 topics. Personally, I would put 4 hours in a traffic engineering topic and 2 hours for less important ones, such as a traffic signals or a traffic control design. Does this mean I do not cover those low weight, we call it low weight topics? The answer is no. You need to prepare for that, but the main focus, your main focus is on the topics with the biggest piece or biggest chunk of your exam. Why? Because after all, every single one here today showed the commitment, the required commitment. Once you joined this webinar, you actually showed us your commitment that you really want to pass. And this is what we are trying to help you achieve, to pass. That's why more questions, more weight on those topics. That means you will be able to earn more points, help you pass this exam. One last thing I wanted to share. Do I still have time, Jenny?
We do want to move on to the next slide unless.
Okay. Okay. Sorry.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay. No,
that is very important though, and so from this, definitely visit the website, check out that examinee guide, find your reference handbook for the exam you'd want to take, and check out the specifications. That's probably one of the best ways to get started, to at least know, like, what do I need to know for my exam before I get my prep started. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. We are going to now touch upon navigating that exam application process, because I know that can be quite a confusing process as well, with a lot of little nuances. So we're going to kick off with Josh for the first few of these bullet points.
Yeah, so let me just mention that each state is different. And so applying for the exam is going to look a little bit different. Some might require that you provide information beforehand, get approved, and then take the exam, or you might not have to get approved by your state licensing board. So in order to determine what that is, I would recommend going to NCEES's website, clicking on either FE exam, PE exam, and there will be a map, and you can click on your state, and then it will give you information of where do I go to contact somebody at my licensing board. There's also links for that in the examinee guide on the first page, because it is so important. Now, as far as applying for the exam or registering for the exam, you do have to have that My NCEES account. Once you have that account created, you can pay for the exam or register and pay for the exam that you want. but it might require that they get confirmation from your state to allow you to actually schedule the exam. So again, each state is different. As far as the next couple things on this list, again, these can either be before or after, depending on what your state is. The requirement for transcripts, those you'll have to go through your university to get official transcripts. And those are used to help verify your education, which is used for getting you credits for years of experience, essentially, again, depending on your state. As far as the actual application or state-specific requirements, like I mentioned, checking in with your licensing board is going to be the best thing to do. Checking their website, or oftentimes they have an email or a phone number, and they're government agencies, so they're kind of required to get back to you. It just might take a day or two, depending on where things are at. Now, as far as references go, this is not the references that you will take or that you will have available to you on the exam, but more references to verify that, yes, you are qualified to be an engineer, and yes, the work experience that you have is correct and valid. Now, I would recommend before you ask somebody, or before you just send somebody blindly an application or a reference form to fill out, write about you, and send back, talk to them. Make sure that they would give you a good recommendation or a reference, or that they'd be willing to do so. And this, again, is a reference that somebody that you've worked with, whether that's a supervisor, a coworker, and this, depending on the route that you go with the actual application, is going to be going through NCEES, because they have a way to like combine all this information so it's easy to apply in various states. More on that later. But also to verify that work history. And part of that work history that you need to have, depending on whether you're getting your PE or SE, for the EIT or the FE, there's not a work history requirement needed or years of experience. Instead, for the PE or SE, you need to make sure that you're working under somebody that's licensed in the state that you're working in. So for example, if I'm an EIT and I want to get my PE, I need to work under somebody who's licensed as a PE. Similarly, for those that want to become an SE, you have to be licensed as a PE working under somebody with an SE. Now, each state has different timing requirements for that, and we won't get into that. Just recommend that you look into that with your different licensing boards with the state that you live or work in.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. And we'll have Khalid finish off the last 3 bullet points here.
Sure. With scheduling exam dates, you would do that under the My NCEES account. And when I teach the course for the FE Electrical and Computer Engineering course, that's actually the homework for the first day, because it differs from state to state. If you're in a state like myself, like New York, or if you live in California or Massachusetts, very populated, there's a lot of people, you'll notice that you can't find a seat for maybe 4 months. But maybe in some other states, you could find a seat in a month or maybe a month and a half. So it's always recommended, as soon as you decide to pursue either your FE or PE, you immediately schedule your exam date seat. Otherwise, what oftentimes happens is people can finish the course, they can study, they feel like they're ready, but then when they try to schedule an exam date, they find out that it's 4 months later. And now, instead of studying for 5 months and feeling that they're fresh and they could go take the exam, they might feel a little tired, a little exhausted for studying 7, 8, 9 months, just waiting for that exam date to happen, which oftentimes feels like maybe like a rookie in the playoffs. They've played for so long and it's the first time. Once they're deep in the playoffs, they just can't take it anymore. Now, regarding the amount of times you could take the exam, let's say for some reason you do fail, you can take the exam 3 times per calendar year. So it doesn't necessarily mean from today to a Professional Engineers Day of next year. It means the year of 2024. So if you fail this month, you could take exam number 2 in October. Then you could take another one in December. So it's 3 attempts per calendar year. And lastly, I wanted to cover approved calculators. So if we can go to that page. So at the bottom of this page, of exams page, you will find calculator policy. Now, it's very specific what kind of calculators you're allowed. So Casio, you're allowed the FX115 or the FX991. Now, PPI provides the FX115ES for everyone as part of the course. We also have HP that's allowed, so HP 33 or HP 35, which I don't think is that common. I don't see a lot of people actually using HP calculators, but probably my favorite is Texas Instruments, so TI 30X or TI 36X Pro. I've been teaching the course for a little over 2 years now, and between Casio and TI, the FX115ES and the TI 36X Pro, definitely I prefer the TI 36X Pro, and I have a lot of students that switched over from Casio to TI, even if they were originally used to the Casio. TI has much less steps for the same amount of functions, so it makes it easier. Casio is a little bit more difficult because you have a mode function at the top of the calculator, so it takes you to a different page. So you have to know what page to go to apply your calculations. At least with a TI, if you're frustrated, you can start plugging things in until you find the right answer. You can't do that with the Casio. And one thing to remember is on the day of the exam, when you walk in there, it won't let you take the calculator cover with you. So what happens with the Casio is they have all the constants preloaded in there, but you need to know what number constant it is in that drop-down menu, and then it'll populate. The TI is exactly listed. This is the speed of light. This is charge of an electron. This is permeability, permittivity. So you know what you're looking at. Versus the Casio, you have to remember, oh, I have to hit this menu and I hit number 35, and it'll give me permeability. So the Casio is definitely more difficult than the TI. So I prefer the TI 36X Pro. And if you do take a course, I would recommend to stick with one of the two calculators, because your entire classmates will be using that calculator. Sometimes people might use maybe the TI 30 Pro, and it's a little bit different. So if you're stuck with something, you're not able to coordinate with your classes or myself and try to figure out what's going on, what's going wrong.
Great, thank you. We're going to go to the next slide now. We're going to talk about a little bit about exam day, that experience. And Khalid, do you want to keep on going?
Sure, I'll take it.
Okay.
So the exam day process is probably the most questions that I get. A lot of people are nervous, especially when they're taking the FE exam. They don't know what to expect. Overview of the exam day process. I'd like to cover this going before the exam day, because I've had the same amount of comments coming from people after they take the exam, and that's that they got lost and they didn't know where it was and they arrived late to their appointment. So I would say a week before, same day, let's say you schedule your exam on a Saturday at 8:15, a week before, go to that facility, drive there on a Saturday at 8:15, see if you could find it in that office building. Sometimes there will be an office building that's a little bit older, has a little bit of an 80s architecture, so you get lost. I took an exam once in the basement of a building and I just couldn't find it forever. So I always recommend driving there, finding the office itself. I drove down the same road about 2 months before and I accidentally slashed my tires because I didn't realize it was an industrial area and there's stuff on the road. So that's something to always pay attention to because you don't want to be late on your exam day. Now, everyone will be taking the exam at the Pearson View Center. So they're all going to be run by the same person. Now you're going to walk into the facility. I personally recommend walking in about 30 minutes earlier than your appointment date or as soon as they open. And you're going to walk in, and at front of the entrance, there's going to be a stack of numbers, almost like a deli counter. You're going to take your number and you're going to be seated, just waiting for your number to be called up. Someone's going to call up your number. You're going to walk up to them, hand them your number, and then they're going to ask for documentation. So based on the examinee guide that we went over before, if you're a citizen, a license would work. For certain scenarios, passport would work. But if you have a different status, I would definitely recommend looking at the examinee guide or contacting their customer service. I have been asked, and this might be something to pay attention to, if you do live in a territory like Puerto Rico or Guam or Samoa, you might want to look into that. Maybe their documentation requirements are different. If you work in one state like New York, but you live in a state like New Jersey, what's the process? You might want to look into that as well. Which center do you get tested in? What documents do you take with you? And I've even been asked, if you live in Canada, but work in the US, so I've been asked that in the past, you might want to talk to NCEES and see what's required on the day of the exam. So just confirm the documentation requirements before you actually go there, because if you have a situational circumstance, then you don't want to miss your appointment because of that. Now, after you give me your documents, I also do recommend printing out your appointment letter so you have a physical copy just in case there is an error the day that you're there. They'll take that, they'll check you in. They will take a photo of you. So you'll stand up, take a photo, and they'll also take a biometric scan. So biometric scan is this little plastic box on a counter with two prongs sticking up, and you're just gonna put your hand over it. And it's gonna measure essentially your veins and your blood flow to confirm that it is you. Nothing scary, they're not poking you with a needle, it's just like a scan from the outside, so you're okay. After that, they will give you a key, and they will ask you to put everything that's not required into your locker. So once you put everything into your locker, I do recommend go to the bathroom first, and then come back and sit down. Now, the only thing that you can take out from your locker and take with you into the exam is your official documents, which could be your license, the key to your locker, and your calculator without a cover. Now, I do recommend bringing more than one calculator just in case you drop it, you break it, battery runs out, but have a spare calculator in your locker. Now, you are not allowed to bring more than one into the testing room, but if your calculator dies, you're allowed to leave the room, go to your locker, get a calculator, and go back. And I do also recommend just keeping some caffeine in your locker. Make sure that during your break, you have some little caffeine boost. So then you'll sit down, wait to be called up by security. Once you're called up by security, you will be searched, little light pat down, make sure that you're not cheating, make sure you have no devices on you, and then you'll be brought in to your testing room. Once you're seated, the instructor or security guard will log in. You'll have a 2-minute tutorial on how to use the program. Now, based on your testing center, it can either be 2 monitors, if you're lucky, but most testing centers is a single big monitor with a split screen in the middle. So your reference manual will be on the left side and your exam will be on the right side. During the exam, definitely don't look around. Don't try to peek over, see how many people are in there, because that can also get you kicked out of the facility. So they'll just disregard your exam. During your break, once you check in the first half of your exam, you'll raise your hand, you'll wait for the person to come over and get you, and you'll get escorted outside. Now, once you're outside, I would say go to the bathroom first, because I've had a lot of emails afterwards of panicked students, thankfully they still passed, that the way the checking in works for the FE and PE at Pearson VUE, it's not based off your appointment. It's first come, first serve. So if you have an appointment at 8:15 while you're checking in and everyone rushes in, whoever has that deli number first, they go in before you. Same thing when you go on your break and you come back. If there's a line of people and your break was only 20 minutes for the FE or 50 minutes for the PE, now you have to wait until this line in front of you clears out before they bring you back into the room. So I always recommend, just if you're going to go on your break, come back as quickly as possible and wait in that waiting room. Especially because a lot of people forget that Pearson VUE doesn't just administer these 2 exams. They administer exams for civil servants, government employees, for teachers, principals, nurses. So you will see people go in and out the facility all day long. People will show up for 2-hour exams, 3-hour exams, which are there for about 6 hours or 8 hours. So you want to make sure that you're not stuck in that rush hour and you're able to get back to your seat in time.
Okay, thank you. Guys, I'm going to go to the next slide. So I am going to skip this additional recommendations. This was just if Josh or Mahmoud wanted to chime in, but I do think that Khalid covered a lot there, and I want to make sure that we get to the information on the next slide. So the last things that we're going to cover here is that post-exam, that what now. So we'll go ahead and kick it off with Josh.
Yeah, so Khalid talked about taking the exam, and then there's a waiting game afterwards where you'll figure out, did I pass? Did I not pass? Now, in the unfortunate event that you don't pass, first thing to do is breathe. Just know that you did your best, and then from there, lift your head up and just know that you're in good company. Myself included, I've been in that situation. There are many others that have been in that situation. That doesn't mean that you're a bad engineer or that you're never going to make it in life. So just realize that that's par for the course, and you wouldn't want every single person that takes the exam to pass it, because there's credibility aspects to it as well. So hold your head up, breathe, take a moment, whether that's a week, a month, and then get back after it. That's the main thing with not passing. They do provide you some, like a diagnostic breakdown for areas that you excelled, or that you're better than average, or that you're less than average. And so that helps you to understand, okay, these are the areas of the exam spec that I should focus on for next time. Now, if you do pass, congratulations. You should celebrate. You should thank all those that are around you that have been patient with you, that have not seen you in months, whether that's family, friends, etc. Thank them, because they've been making a sacrifice as well as yourself. Then from there, depending on which state you live in, either you continue that application process or you start that application process, again, depending on what state that you're in. At which time you'll have to still wait to get, accreditation from your specific state or licensing board. Typically, if you're already in their system or if you apply, they're going to send you an email, send you a letter that either gives you a temporary, yes, you're licensed, you can do what licensed engineers do, or they will just send you an official document with your license number. So definitely don't recommend going out and starting to, pretend to stamp things until you get that official license number from the state, because otherwise it's not officially licensed.
Great. Speaking of stamps, Khalid, do you want to talk about purchasing a stamp?
Sure. Now, with purchasing a stamp, first step I would say is to confirm with your workplace. So for every company, it's different. For myself, they reimburse it, but they made me go out and purchase. I know for Mahmoud, the company went out and purchased it for him.
Yeah.
So confirm with them first if they will purchase it or you have to purchase it. And if you have to purchase it, will they reimburse you or not? But either way, I definitely recommend purchasing it. It is different for each state requirements, each state's stamp will be different. Some of them are like an actual ink stamp. Some of them are like more of a crimp stamp that crimps the paper, but you have to confirm with your state. Now, finding where to get a PE stamp is actually very simple. You can actually just Google purchase PE stamp, and there are multiple approved vendors that have it. So it's not like a specific location. You don't need to get it directly from your state board, which when I got my PE, that's what I thought you had to do. But it's very simple. You can just Google it. But as Josh had mentioned, you need to wait for your license number first. So when you go to purchase it, you tell them what state, you tell them your name and your license number, and the vendor will actually look you up and see if you have an active license. And that's it. And that's how easy it is to actually purchase a stamp. You could do it in 10 minutes.
Awesome, thank you. Next up is maintaining credits. And Mahmoud?
Yes, actually, I just want to add something to what Khalid said.
Yeah.
I know my employer bought my stamp to me back then. I don't know the procedure how to buy it. The only information I knew back then is that I can pick the color. So my stamp was black. Some people, they pick it blue. Some people, they like to pick it red. So mine was black. This is the only information I knew back then. Okay, now for you as an engineer, you pass the PE exam, you maintain the minimum requirements to be licensed as a professional engineer in your state. So let's assume that you were already licensed 10 years ago, 15 years ago. and you did not attend any workshop, any presentation, anything about your discipline since then, does it really make sense to you? The answer is no. This is why every single year your board is going to ask you to attend at least 15 credit hours. And when we say 15 credit hours, that does not mean 15 courses. Why? Because some courses may grant you 4 hours. Those hours are called the PDH hours. It says professional development hours. And every year you need to pass at least a minimum of 15, and one of them should be in the ethics discipline. What you can see in your screen now is my own PDH tracking sheet. Thank you, Jenny. This tracking sheet, I advise every single one of you to start preparing one once you receive your license. As you can see here, for example, in year 2022, you need to mention the name of the course and the PDH hour accredited to that course and the date you accomplished that course, and make sure the total is a minimum of 15. The most frequently question I always receive, can you transfer hours? The answer is yes. So if this year I passed maybe 30, 35 hours, I can transfer some hours to the next year. However, you cannot transfer any ethics hours in a transportation engineering, I'm talking. You cannot transfer ethics. You can transfer the rest of them. Now, regarding those hours, you may ask the second most frequent question, which is, am I going to be audited by my board? The answer is yes and no. No one in the board is going to ask you to present to them what you took this year. No one. However, if you were not lucky a little bit, they may audit you. They may contact you saying you were picked to show that you passed your PDH hour in this year. And I advise you always to be ready, because auditing may happen in March, may happen by the end of the year, December, may happen in September. It depends on the expiration date of your license, which you need to renew every single year.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, last two things here is about reciprocity and state credit requirements, and we'll finish it off with Josh.
Yeah, so reciprocity is essentially the idea that various states will recognize that you are licensed in another state and help smooth over the process of becoming licensed in that specific state or a new state. Now, in order to become licensed in each state, you have to apply for a license in that state. Some states have different exam requirements. I know that some states have a separate exam, like California. They have the seismic and surveying exams that PEs and SEs are required to take. Texas has an ethics exam. Depending on what state you're in, there just might be additional things that you have to provide. But the process is the same when you're applying to your second or third or fourth state. It just depends on the requirements of said state. Now, you would be going through the same process of providing transcripts, references, verification of work. Luckily, as far as the exam is concerned, NCEES administers the FE, PE, and SE exam, and those are recognized as a national exam. So each state is going to see, okay, you took and passed the PE in California, we'll take that over here in Utah, and you're now licensed as a PE. And so that makes it easy if you're moving from state to state. Now, Mahmoud mentioned maintaining credits, and each state has their different requirements for continuing education units, CEUs, or PDHs. For example, California does not require you to get additional PDHs or continuing education units, whereas the state of Utah and others do require that, whether that's during a 1-year span, 2-year span. It just depends on the state. So again, checking in with your licensing board, seeing how you need to track that. I know that some states might audit you, as Mahmoud mentioned, and some states might require you to self-report every so often. But beyond that, I think that the main purpose, we shouldn't see continuing education units as a burden or cumbersome. Instead, they're just a way for us to continue to learn, continue to grow, and to continue to improve, which is the whole purpose of applying for and taking the exam, passing, becoming licensed. Like, that's all, the whole point of this whole journey or the process that we're going on once we start with NCEES.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, we